also owned by the 200 million Nigerians, including me and you. And not only that, there is an ownership structure that ensures that this interest is held on behalf of all of us by the Ministry of Petroleum Incorporated and the Ministry of Finance Incorporated in a manner that is supervised by the National Economic Council. It also means there's freedom to act profitably. You cannot do things that are not commercial. You have the board as the highest decision-making body of this company, which is typical of every Kama company. And also to do businesses in wide areas in the energy sector, and including non-energy businesses. All these were practically difficult to implement when you are bound under certain regulations that do not allow you to make some decisions that are requirements of the Company and Allied Matters Act. And therefore, we transited from a corporation that is fully owned by government, funded by government in all sense, and largely an agency of government, to a limited liability company that is owned by all of us, that is accountable to its board, and that is open to every scrutiny that every other company is exposed to. Typical example, even in the telecom sector, MTN, Dangote Group, and anyone that you are thinking of is open to scrutiny by the relevant institutional authorities, including the CAC, to ensure that you run this business in a manner that represents the shareholders. This was not there in the past. And therefore, what happened? In July 2021, the National Assembly passed the Petroleum Industry Act. And subsequently, on the passage of the Petroleum Industry Act, Mr. President, rightly and courageously endorsed the Petroleum Industry Act and passed it to become the law of the Federation. That means now the Petroleum Industry Act. And I must emphasize that the petroleum industry is governed by two major laws in the past: the Petroleum Act, 1967, and the Petroleum Profit Tax Act, also of 1967. And may I seek this opportunity to also mention that there is no substantial change in the Petroleum Act and the Petroleum Profit Tax Act since 1967. Essentially, you are dealing with a very ancient law that does not respond to the realities of today, but we didn't have the courage to change it. Since 2000, every effort to change those legislations to ensure that we bring our regulation in line with best practice in the industry globally, and also to react to the realities of today, didn't work out. And I can tell you very, very confidently that the reason was absence of courage and actual of detachment from the realities that, yes, government can actually take up its hands from a company that can do better under a different environment. And that's why the passage of the Petroleum Industry Act is a major milestone for our country. It is changing the law that everyone else couldn't do. I think that's the best way to put it. Since 1964, no significant amendment has been made to our petroleum laws until Mr. President passed into law the Petroleum Industry Act. And that rolled into process a number of things. First of all, the law requires that we must incorporate the NNPC Ltd. Within a certain period of time. And that we did in a very record time. And thereafter, as you will also recall, there's a cutover of the company. Because when you do, you must have assets. So this company, when we incorporated, it didn't have assets. The law also requires that certain assets must be transferred to this company. And also, Mr. President, rightly also transferred the assets of the former NNPC, some of the valued assets that are clearly determined on the basis of best practice that you can find anywhere. A value was put on it, and Mr. President, in his wisdom also, transferred those assets to the NNPC. But that means there's a complete cutover of the NNPC as a corporation to the NNPC Limited on the 1st of July. And thereafter, the rest is history. I'm sure many of you were there when we unveiled the NNPC on the 19th of July. The meaning of this is grave, is huge, and is of substantial value to our country. What it means is that this company must have a different corporate strategy, which we have put in place. Because this is a basic requirement of the Company and Allied Matters Act and every other best practice in the energy sector. It also, you must have a different brand. You can't be what you are always and continue to reflect something else. So we put in place a different brand, which many of you have seen. And then you must have a separate business operating models. Business operating model simply means that you have to stop what you have always done. What we have always done is to respond to moments, emotions, and sometimes very often sub-commercial considerations in our decision-making process. That means you must have a definite business model that will ensure that these businesses are never run on loss. And by the way, the energy sector, specifically the oil and gas sector, isn't a loss-making business. So anytime you make losses, there is something wrong with your business model, there is something wrong with your practices. And the end result is that you will lose money. And that is why for 43 years, we are unable to declare profit. That is why NNPC didn't have the courage to publish its financial statements. And I can tell you, Mr. President also directed that what are we hiding? Why don't you tell people what you're doing? And we had the courage, with the support of Mr. President, to establish and to declare that we lost money in the year 2018. We lost 803 billion naira. And that thing to be ashamed of, because this is a product of what you have done. A product of bad governance, lack of system and processes, non-commercial decisions, and also the very fact that you are commingling commercial activities with agency roles. And they never go together. And subsequently, we put in place an apt and definite organizational structure, which means that it's a much more compressed company today, a slimmer company that it will be, it has to be. And also, because your financing partners always look out for your ability to have a system, a business model, a governance structure, and that's a basic requirement of finance. That means that it will enable us to have access to financing. And largely, and most importantly, you must have system and processes in place, which is a basic requirement of the company and allied matter. But more than anything, in this industry, if you do not have the right policies, the right processes, that discretion becomes optimal, there's no way you can break even. And therefore, you must have system and processes, controls for governance that you must keep to. And that is what we did, to make sure that we put in place the right policies and processes. By the way, you may be aware that the law is clearly stipulates that these companies' interests can be diluted subsequently. The federation, the shareholders, you and me, under the guidance of the National Economic Council, that we can dilute our interests instead of having a bulk interest held on behalf of all of us. Like there can be private interests that can be held by individuals or companies in this company. And this is very, very different, because if this happens, and it will happen because this is a requirement of Section 54 of the PIA clearly stipulated that we can't dilute the interests of this company. And for you to do this, you must be IPO ready. IPO ready means that you must have system, processes, organization, transparency, and also the asset to back this up, and also a business practice, a business model that supports this. And I believe very strongly with what has happened now, with the things that has been done so far, that I believe that by the middle of next year, this company will be IPO ready, and we can dilute the interests of this company. And of course, you can't do this except you have clear vision and mission as a company, and core values. Of course, our ambition is to be the dynamic global company of choice. Today, companies and individuals have choices. As you're already seeing in the global space, geopolitical issues that are coming up, people have choices. People decide where they want to acquire energy from. And therefore, you must have the reliability of supply, the ability to manage pricing, and also ultimately that your partners can see that it's a long-term partnership that they can have with you. And therefore, when you do this, you can now become the global company of choice. But you cannot do this except you have integrity, you perform in an excellent manner, and also you have sustainable practices. Sustainability is everything today. You can get this out today, you can make profit today, but profits must be sustainable. Delivery of energy must be sustainable. People must see this. And more than anything, it must be clear that you are following a path that recognizes the realities of today, which is climate change. So by the way, climate change is real, energy transition is real, but it must be just. and it's probably not a moment to speak about this, but we are doing everything possible, first of all, to provide the energy of today as we continue to build the capacity and ability to create sustainable energy through our new energy initiative. And you will see this. And therefore, if we do this, we'll be able to reliably deliver energy while continuously creating value for our stakeholders and our shareholders particularly, which is all of us in this country. And is it possible to break from the past? Yes, it is. As I mentioned, we lost 803 billion naira in 2018, and we published it. I'm sure you must have seen those reports, and they are still on our webpage. By 2019, we were able to cut down those losses to just 2.3 billion naira. And by end of 2020, we have published our financial statement, audited by the best of class financial institutions. You can check this. And we made a profit of 287 billion naira. And I can tell you, 2021 accounts are ready. We're only waiting for governance and processes because of the very fact that we're a Kama company, and we'll publish it. And I can tell you we did better than year 2020. But as we do this, one major thing that is real is energy poverty in our country. And there's no way you can close that gap except you focus on what you have. And what we have is enormous gas resources that we have in this country. As a matter of fact, this country is a gas country, not an oil country. This country has enormous resources. We have always focused on the liquids. We have always focused on today so that we can have the cash that will continue to things that we have always done over the years, but without focusing on the new energy sources. And the only way you can achieve this is to make sure that you access the gas resources that you have. And that is why, since this government comes, several projects have been delivered. Gas delivery projects, some are ongoing. We have commissioned NNPC directly, our IGF facility in Benin. Our IKK project is on course and will deliver it by first quarter of next year. We are also progressing the Trans-Morocco pipeline and also the Trans-Saharan pipeline, which is also in the media. I'm sure you have seen this. This is long-term. It's not for today, but I can tell you that the world needs it. And that connections are necessary. And those infrastructures, because we never focus on it, it has always been what I call on the PowerPoint, and that it must come on the table, and it's now on the table. That we have access to financing for them, we have partnership that will work. There's a greater trust for our country, and I can tell you this, there's a greater trust for our country in the international sphere, in the consumer market space. As you might have seen, several engagements have taken place with the European Union Economic Energy Commission, and very many other stakeholders that too many to mention in this platform, that people now think that we're serious, that we can deliver this. As we do this, first and foremost, we deliver gas into domestic market. As we speak today, we are unable to meet the growing demand for gas in our country. Very many reasons. First of all, we have failed to bring in the infrastructure that is required in the last 20, 30 years. No need to lament. But what can we do today? What we're doing today is to increase supply into the domestic market such a way that gas-based industries can come up. We can provide gas to power. We're already doing this. We're already meeting the basic requirements, but we know we're not there. And there are several things that we are doing to get through the actions of government. Government has decided that this is a decade of gas. More than anything, there's a gas expansion program which has specific targets in the upstream so that the gas will be available, building the infrastructure that is required, and also supporting the industries that will necessarily take this gas to either to convert them to other materials that can of use or to create power. And I think this is work in progress, but clearly we have a line of sight around what is happening. And by the way, you are also aware that what has defied all logic, that is to bring on board the Trend 7 FID. We are able to deliver this in year 2019. This is very possible. This is very practical reality that you can do more than this. As we speak now, there are several other LNG projects that are in the offing now. A number of people, because of the new trust that they have, that they think they can do business with us. They believe that we can make decisions. They believe that we have access to the assets that are necessary for this. And that's why we're seeing a number of floating LNG projects that we're already engaging. And I'm very, very confident that as we close, you will see this happening and that this country will benefit from its enormous gas resources. Needless to bother you, these are just pictures, work in progress. I invite you at your convenience. Maybe Ms. Ogafemi and Ogasheo will help us to see. If you want, we can take you so that you see what is going on. It's not picture. is real. We can take you there so that you can see the progress we have made both on the AKK pipeline, the OB3 line, and very many other gas infrastructure projects that we are running today now, and that probably not the right moment to bother you with it, but it's real. I'm inviting you to join me so that we can go and take a look at it. And of course, big question, everybody will say, why are you importing petroleum product? Yeah, because you are not processing internally. Needless to lament again, our refineries are not functioning today. We deliberately shut them down because it didn't make any further sense for you to take in, example, $100 oil into a refinery and the product it brings out is $70. This is for very many reasons, very many years of neglect that has crystallized into an inability of this plant to perform optimally. It's still lamentation. We are not absolving ourselves from that responsibility or that liability. It is real. But what is very, very obvious is that the very fact that this company wasn't operating as a business was the key reason, because decisions cannot be made. Sometimes, even to put in place a contract to replace a part will take you 10 months to do. And the refineries don't wait for you. And overall, you ended up having a situation where you are unable to make it optimally processed, and we shut it down. And now, we are very confident that we are restoring it back to at least 90% of their installed capacities. We already have contracts in place. Contractors, I will also invite you at your right time, I will discuss with the chairman, that you can come and see what is happening in Port Harcourt Refinery. We will get it back. We will get it back to normalcy. We will run it as a business. As a matter of fact, we borrowed money to fix it. We didn't take petroleum money. We are borrowing money to fix it because borrowers will not lend you money. Lenders, will not give you money except they are sure that you can return it. And the payment for that is tied to the productivity of that refinery. And that means that something must change. And what did we change? We are not going to operate it. We are going to have an O&M mechanism. It means operation and maintenance contractor will run it. We will not run it because that's a basic requirement of the lending. The lender said, no, we can't trust you at this point in time to run it, except you decide through a transparent process, put in place an O&M contractor, then we can lend you money. And that's why as we complete, we will hand over to the O&M contractor, both for Kaduna and for Refinery. And I'm sure this will be a different story. For a business, we think that this is the right thing to do. As a matter of fact, very, very few companies operate refineries on their own. They will always take an O&M contractor. This is what we didn't do in the last 43 years, and unfortunately, it's lamentation. But we're not lamenting we'll get this done. We'll deliver on this rehabilitation exercise. And of course, needless to say, nothing political. Through our efforts, through the ability and capability of our staff, who we are very proud of, which has defied all logic. The majors have gone to the Benue Trough, to the Chad Basin, and they can't find oil. And we found oil, commercial oil, and I can also tell you there's an ongoing process to make sure that we produce this oil so that it's become of value to us. So we're very proud of this as a country, and also that it opens a new chapter in our activities, because it now means that we can expand the resources that we have, we can build the reserves that we have, and also choice of supply becomes much more easier for all of us. And of course, the downstream business is the most challenged, as you all know today. You need assets, you need facilities. Those facilities for storage and facilities also for transportation of petroleum. As you may also be aware, because of the very unfortunate acts of vandals along our major pipelines, from Atlas Cop all the way to Ibadan, and all the others connecting all the 27 depots that we have across the country, none of them can take delivery of product today. And the reason is very simple. For some of the lines, for instance, from Warri to Bini, we haven't operated line for 15 years. Every molecule of product that you put gets lost. And of course, you remember the sad incidents of the fire incidents around, I can't remember, it's very close to Warri, it's close to Saple, that killed so many people. So we have to shut it down. And as we speak, ladies and gentlemen, sorry, just one moment. The level of losses that we have on on our pipeline, product pipeline, and I'm sure you may have seen it, and I'll invite you at the right time. We can take a look at it jointly. You remember that in Lagos area, when a fire outbreak happened in one of our pipelines, now we discovered that some of the pipelines are actually connected into individuals' homes. And not only that, and without really, with all sensitivity to our religious beliefs, some of the pipelines and some of the products that we found are actually in churches and in mosques. That means that everybody is involved. There is no way you will take product, bring in trucks in populated neighborhood, load it and leave without everybody else knowing about it. That everybody includes members of the community, members of the religious leadership, and also, and most likely, government officials of all natures, including security agency personnel. They are everywhere. And we have seen this even in the Niger Delta, and I'm coming to this. And there's no way you deliver volume and then lose up to 30% and you continue to put that product on this line. So what are we doing different? First and foremost, as you can see, every slight dislocation in the transportation system today, trucks' inability to deliver product, you will see queues somewhere. This is because every day you have at least 2,500 trucks loading from different depots coming into different parts of the country. You have to do this because there's no other way of doing it. It would have been easier if the products are close to the source. For instance, if the products are up by pipeline into Suleja, so what it means is that you just need maybe 30 kilometers into Abuja town. Now the trucks have to leave Lagos, Ogara, Calabar, Port Harcourt to come into Abuja before they come into Suleja before they come into Abuja. This is the reality that we're dealing with. And this is why we also decided that we don't have to continue to run this. What we have to do is to create a replacement process. And by the way, some of the pipelines have aged, no doubt. Many of them have lived their lifespan, some supposed to be 20 years, some of them are now 40 years, and they naturally give up. But more than anything, and much more difficult to manage is the issue of vandals, which cuts across every community, no exception now. In the past, people have always thought that it is between Lagos and Mosibi that you have problem, or between Warrior and Bini, or probably maybe in the east or somewhere. It's everywhere. Wherever our products have gotten to, everybody has now become some form of vandal. And so there's no exception. There is no exclusion. Wherever our facilities first, this is exactly what is happening. And what we have decided to do is to also make this private. We are building a national reserve company. This is very necessary. It's a requirement of the law. That reserve company will run those pipelines, will run the facilities, but on a commercial basis. We are selecting build, operate contractors who will be able to manage this pipeline, who will be able to manage this risk in a manner that is different from today, so that ultimately products can come very close to its end users. But in the meantime, there's very little else we can do than to continue to transport on trucks. And that brings a different set of troubles, because these trucks are heavy. Some of them carry up to 60,000 liters. And that's the continuous strain on our roads. And that is why we also saw the necessity to intervene at NNPC through the tax credit scheme. We are now building 27 roads in this country, worth over 600 billion naira. As a matter of obligation, because if we don't do this, the roads will give up. They will not be completed. There are many roads started 20 years ago, 15 years ago, that never come close. And the reason is very simple. Financing is never aptly or appropriately provided. And ultimately what we did was to intervene to see how we can close this gap, so that first and foremost, our major concern is to ensure energy security. And we believe that we are successful in this. As you can see, in very many roads across the country, we don't want to make too much noise about it. I think it's important that one day you will join us to go and see how much work that is being done on behalf of the NNPC by the Federal Ministry of Work and their contractors. And we know this is happening, and that is why you don't see too many news around bad roads in the country. The reason is very simple. NNPC came into it. And very, very importantly, ladies and gentlemen, my colleagues, what is most difficult to manage today, what is much daring for us to live with, is the issue of crude oil theft. It's real. It is happening. Are we helpless? No. We are not helpless, and our efforts are paying off. As we speak now, what you see on the screen is a typical site where crude oil is stolen and is processed in illegal refineries. And probably a selection of you one day, if you want, I will take you so that you can see it in the air, see what it really means. I hope by the time we get there, we have taken them out, because we will not stop so that you can see it. If it's tomorrow, you will still see it, because they are still there. What you see here is so common around the pipeline that I can tell you in one line, just less than 200 kilometers, we had 295 illegal connections. And you'll see the data, 295. It's impossible for any oil company to continue to operate. No one produces oil so that the next person will take it. And I'm sure maybe some of us are in some kind of business. I hope not. I don't. You know, if you produce and somebody takes all the production, the wise thing to do is to stop the production. You can't continue to produce. This is really what is happening. And what did we do? We intervened with the help of the government security agencies. By the way, Mr. President's directives were very clear. Go and sort this out, clear it out, and bring back normalcy. And on the basis of that, the Chief of Defense Staff was directed to lead us in a process that will ensure that intervention comes both kinetic and non-kinetic interventions, including engagement of communities, engagement of private contractors, engagement technology. But I'm not sure it's the right platform to discuss this, but we have a control center, maybe also a select few of you can come, and I'll show you what we are doing. And some of this video that you see being passed around Saudi Aramco, well, yes, we haven't got close to this, but we have something that is resembling this, and I can show you where we do. We are not making too much noise about it. But as a result of those activities, we have so far, with the Nigerian Navy, the Nigerian Army, the Department of State Service, and other agencies of government in the security network, there are arrests of about 11 vessels have been arrested, 30 speedboats have been arrested, 179 wooden boats that you have seen, the type that I've just shown you, and then about 37 trucks. And as a matter of what we do now is we don't arrest them, we burn them. And that's what happens so that they won't come back to business again. And there are arrests. Currently, there are 122 arrests by different agencies of government, and they will be prosecuted. And the prosecution process is going on. And in addition to this, the activities have brought in place the destruction of 959 metal tanks. You can see the number, the colossal number there. I'm going to show you a picture of what these tanks look like. There are ovens used in boiling. 739 of them have been destroyed and identified, and some are destroyed. Not all of them have been destroyed. There are 452 dog pits, the type that I've just shown you. There are 344 reservoirs created that we have a count of it. This is not exhaustive. This is not complete. We don't have complete sight of this. And that's why the technology level is coming. And we'll surprise them that every inch of this land where our assets are will be seen at every moment in time, and actions can be taken. And also, there are 355 cooking pots. This is enormous. It simply means a destruction of the environment. More than anything, yes, we do know that we have lost revenue, we have lost opportunities, we have lost money as a country, but more than anything, what this has done to the environment, in some cases, probably cannot be retrieved anymore. The level of damage that has caused. And the members of community, and I must say this, very many people believe that, the community people are involved. Not at all. It's a very, very insignificant minority that is involved in this. The communities are the victims. If you go to this community, you will see that they are in difficulty. They can't have access to clean water. They can't go fishing. They cannot go to the farm. And sometimes they are forced by these criminals to act in a manner that is illegitimate. And that's why we are working with them to rescue them from this bondage. And more than anything, to rescue the environment. And ultimately, of course, it is very correct also that our businesses will be restored. There will be resources available for the rest of the country to benefit from, every one of us to benefit from. Just to show you, one of the vessels arrested, it's not joke. This is real. If you like, I can text some of you so that I can board it and see what it means. So if you come, this level of vessels, parading and stealing, you can see the level of damage that is causing. And I must commend the Nigerian Navy for doing a very, very effective work. And we believe very strongly at this moment that the majority of the marine activities are largely curtailed. I will not say it is a zero situation because it is impossible to have a zero situation, and technology will help us bring it to zero. And what you see here is the connections, and maybe one day probably I'll invite some of you to also join us. These are the connections that you are seeing. If you see a pipe of this nature, the second picture that you are seeing, that if somebody can connect this, you need at least 40 people to be there. You need cranes, you need equipment, you need generating sense for you to be able to do this. That means this is happening to the knowledge of everyone. And that is why what we are doing there has taken it off. And I'm very proud to say at this moment, in collaboration with our government security agencies, our partners, that one of our lines, and I don't want to mention so that they don't go back and start on it, that we have almost recovered it fully. And we'll see production coming on those lines. Of course, what it means, for you to take down one site, and I just want you to visualize this. So you need a swarm buggy. Typically what it means is it's a crane that can move on swamp and water. That's really what it means. For you to go to every location where you have these refineries to take them down. And that's huge work. And this is what we are doing with the government security agencies, with the support of our partners and all of us and the community members. And we'll scale it up. Because there's no other way of doing it, because what you are seeing now, this is the environment. You can see the grasses have gone. And this will continue to seep into the subsurface, and ultimately it will affect drinking water. And you can do nothing else except to excavate. I mean, the process of the cleaning up is a very cumbersome process. You have seen what is happening in the organic cleanup for very many years, how difficult it is, how almost sometimes even impossible to execute. To have a cleanup of a place of the size of Ogoni. Now imagine this is happening around the entire pipeline network in the Niger Delta region. It's a huge challenge, and we must stop it. Of course, just to show you that we don't just arrest, our government security, we're very proud of what they are doing. Once they get these refineries or the vessels or the boats, they arrest them down so that they don't come back tomorrow. It has its complications, we're very conscious of this, but it's cheaper to do this in the overall interest of the environment and our people than to continue to pull all them together. There's nothing you can do with it. You cannot pull them together. There are no production system. There's nowhere you can take it to. And the only way you can do it is to burn it up. Yes, we do know that it has consequence on the environment, but it's of lesser proportion than pulling them together and keeping them in one place. This is just for you to see more of it. But as I told you, I'm sure everybody is talking about the Saudi. Even as I was coming here, 3 or 4 people forwarded me the video from the Saudi Aramco Control Center. And I've personally been there. And the reason is people think that why can't we see what is happening? So I can also tell you that we have put up a control system. Yes, not the scale of the Saudi Aramco. We're just starting. We started it this year, April. And by now I can tell you we have some visibility around nearly everything we are, particularly on the security platforms and very many of our security operational platforms. We can see them now. We are cooperating with our partners so that every data that is available is visible to us, and that we can control them, we can intervene remotely, and ultimately that people will now start sending our own pictures to people, not the Saudi Aramco picture. So we're not harassed by this because we're clearly on a pathway that is taking us to that level. So we have visibility around our operations. We have visibility around the marine environment. We know where our assets are. We have access to data and cameras on those assets, and ultimately, once the production systems are hooked on, it's simply what Saudi Aramco is doing. It's not rocket science. It is just access to data and have access to controls, and I wouldn't think it's rocket science. We're already getting it done. And I will invite a few of you to join me to visit that center. And of course, to stop crude oil theft, you definitely need everybody to act. People speak always about theft, so everybody has to act, all of you here, and everyone that is listening to me this moment. We can help stop it. Incidences happen near our communities. Once you see this, tell us. There's a secure platform we have created. We're already getting feedback, enormous feedback, and our government security agencies are working on it. We're not just following the list, we're also following the cash. And I can confirm to you this moment that you'll see more things will happen. I'm sure you've heard this statement made by the National Security Advisor. It's not an empty talk. It is real. We mean it. And we know that people are involved. The 122 people that I have mentioned, they have names. We know them. At the right moment, they will be disclosed. But to tell you, beyond this also, not just the small rats that we arrest at the locations, we are going after everyone else. And I can tell you that the EFCC and the NFIU, all of them are on the trail of the cash. So they will find the cash, and they're already finding the cash. And these people will be put on the table, and ultimately we'll see the relief that we require, and nobody will be covered. And of course, needless to say, that this compromise, it cuts across board. There are oil company workers, maybe even NNPC workers. There are government security workers some of them have been arrested. There are people from the oil companies. There are people who are from the communities, and also high flyer, sometimes even one of the right word, elites of the society, and government is going after them, and will get them. Thank you very much.